And now it's time for Church Chat.
Welcome, friends, to this edition of Church Chat. I'm very excited to speak with you today about our spiritual garden project, which is already underway and already yielding good results here at St. John's. I'm joined today by Craig Smith of Punk Rock Produce, Penny Nutbrown, and Shane Watson. All of you have been involved in getting this project off the ground. And as I've said, it is indeed off the ground quite literally, with planter boxes being built as we speak, and some of the groundwork, again, literally being laid for this wonderful project. So thank you for your involvement in everything to date, and thank you for being here with me today. I wanted to just give a little bit of a sketch of what the spiritual garden is for those folks who have maybe just heard about it or are now just hearing about it for the first time. It's a multi-use, multifaceted space, as the best gardens are. And Penny, I wonder if I could throw it over to you just to tell us a little bit about what the spiritual garden is and what it will be.
Well, it's going to be quite something, I think. We do have a multi-year plan. So we're working right now towards goals we had for our first year. So ultimately, it's going to be between the church and the church hall and flow down the slope there. So right cuddled up next to the church, we'll have our veggie planter boxes, which the gentlemen are building right now, I believe, outside. And then if you go down the slope a little bit more, there'll be a seating area where people can stop and either sit together, socially distance if need be, or even just sit by oneself. There'll be a memorial garden, and it's not just memorial for people who've passed away, but also memorial of special events. So it could be a memorial for a baptism or a wedding or some other celebration, a birthday. And we're hoping to grow we'll have stones, and we're hoping to grow that over time. And then we'll also have a children's area at the back. So we'll have a mud kitchen, which Emily Taylor and Dan McKenzie are building for us right now. So we'll have a mud kitchen, and we'll have a chalkboard, an outdoor chalkboard, and seating for the kids on stones. And we're just trying to keep the space as open and fluid as possible so that it can have multi-purposes as we need it. And it is being designed, mostly by Shane, to be able to be used in socially distanced circumstances as well as in quote unquote normal times when we get back to it.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you mentioned Shane being involved in the design aspect, and you also mentioned some of the socially distanced things that are part of our reality, at least at this time, though hopefully not forever and hopefully not for much longer. But Shane, I wonder if you might say a few words about how this idea came to be. It was related to COVID-19, but not purely. I wonder if you might say a few words about that.
Well, yeah, some of the discussions about it emerged from some things that we were talking about, how do we carry out ministry in the face of the pandemic? So we had some brainstorming that we were doing last summer, and the idea of doing something outside came up, and it sort of blossomed into the concept that we have right now, which has been informed by a lot of different ideas that people have contributed. And I think my role has been to try and assemble those into a form that people can sort of understand what the concept is so that we can get it built. But the idea is that we're always open from the church's perspective, and we want to demonstrate that through this project. So it's something that's going to live beyond the pandemic and provide an opportunity for people to engage together as community, and the church providing a space for that to happen. So there's, as Penny mentioned, there's some flexibility built into how the garden will evolve over time to meet the needs. But we're starting with a handful of things right now, and it'll be exciting to see how the community and those involved with the project shape it as we're in the midst of the build and going into the future.
Well, and that's a great segue to talking to Craig, one of our community partners from Punk Rock Produce. Craig, thanks so much for being with us today. We are indebted to you greatly for your help with this project and all the wonderful expertise that you have shared with us, and looking forward to partnering with you in the months and the years to come. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about Punk Rock Produce and how this came to be, and its connection to Port Hope specifically, and now to St. John's.
Well, thank you for involving me. Punk Rock Produce really came out of us trying to promote Grow-A-Row for the local food banks. It's actually like a Food Banks Canada initiative. So when we first started, we built basically a demonstration garden on John Street in Port Hope. And in that first year, so many people became interested in it and enjoyed coming down and visiting that we've kind of tried to continue doing that each year at different locations, and then encouraging people. And I think especially with the pandemic, we've kind of switched to helping people to learn how to do these things for themselves and to donate some of what they grow. Because obviously with the pandemic, it's made it very difficult for community gardens in general. We're hoping in the future to kind of get back to our own thing, but then it worked out perfectly that Penny contacted me and asked me to assist in the planning and kind of lend some of the lessons we've learned doing this in the public space to this project. And I think it's really exciting. And I think it's especially great for older folks and people that don't necessarily have space, that do want to garden or they have gardened. It's good because it gives everybody a place that they can go and something to kind of look forward to.
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly. And as a lot of folks get older and start downsizing, they may indeed miss having that space. And here we've got a community space where they can come and lend a hand and work meaningfully towards issues that I think mean a lot to all of us, not least of them, food security. And we know that unfortunately is a growing issue under the pandemic conditions. So being able to meet that need is hugely important. Craig, before I hit record, you and I were talking a little bit about the punk rock ethos, and that's something with which I have some fairly deep familiarity from previous years. I wasn't born wearing a collar. And I was reflecting that actually so much of my experience in the punk rock and hardcore scenes had to do with the famous sort of DIY, do it yourself kind of mentality. And I've seen so many reflections of that in the church and in ministry. And I think it's one of the things that actually attracted me to ministry was some of that ethos. I think you've been involved in quite a lot of DIY, do-it-yourself sort of initiatives. I've heard it described as guerrilla gardening. So I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about actually the process of building gardens that will grow food in perhaps unlikely places.
Well, as you said, punk rock really is about do it yourself. And I think when we were kind of talking about names, Punk Rock Produce made sense to me because it always has been about promoting community. I think that maybe the music and the attitude kind of part of it has been sort of mixed up. It really, for me growing up, it was always about being there with your friends. It was like having another family. Everyone looked out for each other. Everyone helped each other. Everyone promoted one another. And then if something didn't exist, we made it, because a lot of us lived either in big cities or we lived in small communities, and we just had to create a space for ourselves. So with things like community gardens, and the Guerrilla Gardener is a good example on the west coast of the US, when you look at an urban center that doesn't have space for this kind of a project, it is something that people are asking about a lot, actually. And Port Hope, with its rural kind of agricultural roots, just makes sense to have centralized gardens available or space for people to do that. So even from our first kind of garden that was only 700 square feet or something behind an old hotel, in a space that no one ever thought would grow, I mean, it just flourished. It exploded, and we wound up, it was well over 700 pounds that we donated in the first year. And it really was just a pet project. But the amount of interest, and then with more people coming from the city that want a garden, and they're in a rural community and they can't, that it's been a consistent kind of ask of us. It's difficult, obviously, because I work full time to kind of make that happen. So that's why working with, St. John's really helps me to kind of achieve some of what we want to do and take a little bit of the pressure off, because there's only so many of us. Gardening is a very involved process. It's like raising children. But yeah,
and having many hands makes the work a lot lighter, right?
Exactly. And I mean, again, like bringing in the children are just blown away by it. And time and time again, they've discovered that when you have kids involved in the growing process, they're more likely to try things that they wouldn't otherwise. And we have found that to be really true. And growing odd foods that just aren't things that they're used to seeing, like a purple cauliflower, they just eat it. Normally they know cauliflower is gross, but you introduce something different and get them involved, and then they watch it grow from nothing. It really does engage them. And again, like you say, with the older members of the community that maybe don't have the space anymore, or they don't have as much strength as they once did, or mobility issues, creating spaces for people to be able to get in and gain access to that is really, really healthy for the community overall. And then the benefit of helping the food bank and helping other recipients that are in need of assistance, especially of fresh produce, which tends to be more expensive than most other options. And that's kind of the direction that most food banks are moving, is in a healthier food option, and trying to teach people how to cook and teach people how to make things, because a lot of people didn't grow up with parents or grandparents that taught them those skills. I think it's invaluable, especially now when we are faced with this pandemic, and a lot of people really don't know how to cook for themselves, or they can't really cook like healthy alternatives. I think that this should be like a pretty good kind of jumping point for people to engage in their community and learn more and share and try to grow something for the future.
Absolutely, yeah, and particularly at this time when a lot of people are also considering their overall health and their risk factors. In a strange way, issues related to obesity and the attendant health problems that go with it tend to be an epidemic among lower income populations in our society. I remember a couple of years ago, I went on what was called the food hamper diet as a measure of solidarity with those who rely on food banks. And the idea was that for a week, you were to, those of us like me who were privileged not to have to rely on food banks would purchase the items that would be in a typical weekly food hamper from a food bank and eat just that for the week. And I was struck by two things. One was the absence of choice, which was really striking and made me recognize the privilege that I have in being able to choose what it is that I'd like to eat from day to day. But the second thing that was enormous was the absence of fresh vegetables. In fact, basically the absence of vegetables altogether, other than a couple of cans of this or that I had. And that really got me thinking about our support of Fair Share Food Bank with fresh food. We've done that as part of our regular course of things once a year with a fresh food drive that we do around Thanksgiving time. But being able to do this with the garden on a more regular basis, I think is just amazing. So bringing in that DIY ethic and being able to have a blessing to our community in so many ways by creating a community that will come together and manage this project, will enjoy the space, whether they're working in it or simply enjoying it. And also that we'll be providing much needed resources. It's just wonderful. So we're so grateful for your expertise and your help with,
thank you.
With all of that. No, it's just wonderful to us. Yeah, thank you. Shane, I wondered if you wanted to talk just a little bit more about the physical layout of the space. You are the engineer among us, and you've been involved in a lot of that planning. Can you tell us just what the space is going to look like?
Yeah, sure. So there's a few main features that we're going to start with, and then, as I mentioned, we'll see things evolve over time. One is going to be a outdoor seating area. So we'll have some good, sturdy furniture that will allow a small group of people to gather in a socially distanced way on the property. That'll be on a flatter area towards the back of the property. And at the center of that is going to be where we have the garden of memory stones that people can purchase and help fund our activities, but also put those memories in the garden and sit and visit the garden in that seating area and form community there, and also reflect on those memories that will be represented by the stones. Adjacent to that, right near the back of the property in the shaded area, is where the kids area is going to be, with the shed, which is going to host the blackboard and some stone seating to give the kids a spot to sit. And so that's going to be an exciting area. There will also be a mud kitchen nearby there for the kids to play in.
Now, do you want to tell us specifically what's a mud kitchen? Because Penny mentioned that earlier, and it just delights me to hear the term. But tell folks what a mud kitchen is.
Well, I've never had the opportunity to play with a mud kitchen myself. But, I'm looking forward to it. But it sounds like a very messy and fun affair, and that's exactly what it is. So it's kind of
it is what it sounds like, right?
Exactly what it sounds like. Yeah. So it's an opportunity for the kids to kind of get a little bit messy. So it's kind of like an outdoor kitchen that's kid-sized. So there'll be some tools and stuff for the kids to play with, a bench area, and we've got a gracious volunteer who's building that for us. There'll also be a couple of other spots that are specifically for the kids. So we're going to have a play box that will be filled with pea gravel that they can sort of play with toys in. And they'll also have their own kid-sized raised garden bed. So the kids can, have something of the garden that they can call their own and take ownership and have pride in that and have some fun with it. And the garden beds themselves, of course, importantly, those are actually under construction at the moment, and Craig's been really helpful in contributing to the design ideas for what's going to be workable. So those garden beds are going to be adjacent to the church on the south side of the church building, and we're really excited for all the stuff that we're going to grow in there, which Craig and Penny have been designing what it is we're growing and have been organizing the volunteers to get that started already, actually, with some foster parents for the seedlings. And there'll be some other cool features. We're going to have a sign to sort of let people who are passing by know what it is that's going on in the property, and some flower plantings. And Martha's donated an old cast iron bathtub, which we're going to repurpose into a flower garden, which is going to be kind of a unique feature that will attract some attention. So lots of cool stuff. We've got plans to collect water from the church roof into some totes, so we can use that for watering, and lots more to come too. There's so many ideas.
Marvelous. Well, it's been a great joy to be with all of you today, and we certainly look forward to watching these developments. And folks who are watching, we will be providing updates as well, hopefully with some photos of the produce producing and the flowers blooming and some of the other features that we have in the spiritual garden. We would like to also let you know that on June 12th, we will be having the ribbon cutting, the official opening of the spiritual garden. And our bishop, Bishop Priscilla Shaw, will be joining us for that and doing the ribbon cutting and blessing of the space, particularly the memorial area. Memorial stones, if you're interested in donating, are available. And all of the proceeds from that will go towards supporting the Spiritual Garden Project. You can go to our church website, stjohnschurchph.ca, and find out how to do that there. Well, friends, from all of us to all of you, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again in this space before long. Bye-bye.